Hey everyone, after reading some of the discussion posts that you had to the silo discussion question about sampling 50 marbles out of the silo, I wanted to give you some other things to think about in terms of what you might expect when you're sampling out of something like that or out of any population and what you would expect to get. So to do that, I'm going to go to the StatCrunch software that I keep talking about in some of the videos, or at least you'll see in some of the videos, and that I encourage you to use. Again, I don't encourage you to use a calculator or to do the calculations by hand at all. So please rely on StatCrunch to do the calculations for you. We haven't got into a lot of those yet, but we will soon enough. So to get to StatCrunch, we're going to go to MyLab and Mastering. Once there, you can open up MyLab and Mastering. And then on the left-hand side, you're going to see a tab that says StatCrunch. So I'm just going to click on that. Keep in mind that when you're in your homework questions, you can also access StatCrunch within any problem. There'll be a little arrow that's next to the data set that you can get the data set to open up in StatCrunch. So I encourage you to do that on your homework and other things that you're working on. But for right now, I'm just going to open up StatCrunch to show you what I mean by sampling out of a data set with different colors in our case of the marbles. So I'm going to go to the StatCrunch website. Here I'm just going to click on Open StatCrunch. And anytime you open up StatCrunch, it's going to look like this, like an Excel spreadsheet. And again, when you open up homework problems in StatCrunch, it will look just like this, except it will copy the data set into the columns for you. For now, I'm going to go to the applets. We're going to go to simulations. I'm going to go to earn sampling. If you ever want to come in here and play around with different things, or you have questions about different areas that you can use to kind of explore the different content areas that we're at, please let me know and I'll be happy to show you different things. There's a lot of things this will do. So I'm going to go to earn sampling, and keep in mind with the earn, you're going to have to think the earn is the silo. And I don't remember the colors that I used in the discussion area. I think it was red. And you also don't know what's going on in the silo, right? All you know is that it's got some colors in it. So for right now, I'm going to let type 1 be red marbles, and let's say there's 750 of them, and then there's 250 of other colors. It doesn't let me pick other, so I'm just going to say green. So you can imagine green is just anything that's not red. And then we're going to pick 50 marbles, and we're going to look at the proportion of those things. So keep in mind, now we know what's going on in the silo. In the discussion area, you don't. And I'm going to just show you what happens that if the silo was 75%, right, 750 out of 1,000, if it was 75% red and 25% not red, some other colors, and we take a sample of 50, let me show you what happens here. So in this case, we get 37. Why is this not moving? There it goes. 37 marbles that were red. So we get 37 out of 50. Now, is that exactly 75%? I'm stalling because I don't know that off the top of my head. So 37 out of 50 is 74%. Now, that's not exactly 75%. So we know that when we take a sample out of a population that you're not going to get the exact thing that's happening in the population in the sample. That is, because 75% of the population is red, we won't get exactly 75% in every sample. In this case, we got 74%. So that's just called random variability. Even though we're randomly sampling out of this earn, random variability means that we're just not going to get the exact thing that's happening in the population. But there's also something called sample to sample variability, which means if I draw another sample, well, that actually came up with the same one. Let's get another one. So if we draw another sample, we notice that we don't get the exact same thing here. Oops, we got 34 out of 50, which again is 68%. So keep in mind that what I'm trying to get at is that when you're drawing out of a population, you don't ever expect to get exactly what's going on in the population. But notice that with 1,000 things, that a sample of 50 is giving me a pretty good estimate of what's going on in the population. So notice that it's dropping these bars here where my sample proportions are landing, or you can think of them as percentages, are landing. And if I do this several times, you'll notice that the bars are going to start stacking around 75%. The only reason these are in red is because I have this set as to show greater than 75. It doesn't really matter for the context of our discussion. So if I keep doing this, you're going to notice that the bars stack around 75%, but every once in a while we get some things that are a little erratic. So this one's a little bit higher. This one was 88%, right? 88%, which is not 75%. And I can keep doing this. You're going to notice that most of the time my sample sticks around 75%. But, we're going to get some variability. That's that sample to sample variability that we're talking about, meaning that from sample to sample, we're going to get different proportions or different percentages of red marbles out of our silo or urn, whichever one we're talking about. Keep in mind in the discussion question, you only got one sample, right? And you don't know which one of the samples you got. So you don't know if it's one of the ones that's really close to the true percentage, or if it's one of the ones that are a little bit further away, like this one over here, or say this one over here. So again, I just want to give you something else to think about when you're responding to that discussion question. I would encourage you to consider the sample that we have as a random sample. I really want to more get at how representative the sample is of the population and what we can really use that sample to say about what's going on in the population. So again, just trying to give you this video to give you something else to think about. Keep those responses coming in that discussion and in the other areas, and I look forward to your thoughts.